Welcome to Expertise Unleashed. I'm Brian.
And I'm Michelle.
And Michelle, today we're going to be talking about making the main thing, focus, attention, distraction, all of those sorts of things that really, really matter when you're talking about starting a business or really just in general, just in life. We need to have, a focus, a clear focus on what it is we want, what we're going after, and determination to continue to do it, and make sure we get to the goal that we desire.
Right. You know what? Actually, I'm looking forward to this topic because I think oftentimes people get distracted by a number of things. And so when you talk about focus, focus is how you bring it all in, and what you focus on gets finished. We start with a lot of stuff. We do this, we do that. But when you focus, it really helps you to finish strong. So yeah, this will be a good session today. I'm looking forward to it.
So let's I've looked at a lot of information about focus, and I know what I thought what focus was. And I probably looked at about 15 or 20 different definitions, but this is the one that I like the best. And it says that it is the ability to direct your attention to a single task and maintain it without distraction.
That's good.
I was like, okay, I started thinking back over how many things I started and how many times I got distracted and didn't finish it because I could not simply maintain focus. So when you think about focus in the terms of that definition, like what stood out to you about that? Because it really made an impression on me.
Yeah, you know what? I like that definition because it makes you very singular about what it is that you're working on. So, for example, a lot of times I'm going to focus on losing weight. If we focus on it, then that means I'm doing all of the things that are required to do that one thing. And sometimes it's just hard. Like we think of ourselves as multitaskers. We can do lots of things. We're multi-talented, multi-skilled, which is very true for most people. The challenge is, what is the one thing that you're going to focus on till you get it to a place that you wanted to see the objective, met, materialized, manifested? Being able to stay true to that thing until you get there, that's focus. And so it's a difference maker, because sometimes if you can focus on getting that one thing off and up and going, all the things that's needed for it, you will see a major difference in your life.
I know one of our spiritual mentors, or probably actually the main spiritual mentor that we have, Apostle Keith Wesley. He would always tell us, where the focus goes, the power flows. And so I remember thinking, especially being in corporate for so long, I would always get all these resumes, and they always had multitasking. And I'm able to do this and I'm able to do that. And then I heard a teaching on it one time, and the guy was like, he said, there really is no such thing as multitasking.
Not for people.
You can only do one thing and focus on one thing well at a time. Now you may do one thing from 1 to 3 and then do another thing from 3 to 5, but so that just became a misnomer to me, the whole multitasking. So I'm glad you brought that up. But on the focus thing, the first determines the rest. And so what we focus on and put our attention to without distraction, whatever that is. So let's just say I have a goal of, by the end of the year, I really want to leave my job, and I'm going to stack up enough money to make a run at it. So let's just say I'm going to stack up enough money or try to save enough money to where I can go on my own for a year and start this business that I want to have. So that means that every action I take, everything that I do, focus wise, has to be towards that first. I have the idea for the business, and I know I need 40 to 50 hours to really be effective in running this business or starting this business, but I got to have the money to do it first, and I got to have the wherewithal to do it. So all my focus goes to then what? Okay, maybe I pick up another job, or maybe I do another little side hustle, maybe I cut back on going out to eat or cut back on movies and all those things. So because I know let's just say I need to save $75,000 by the end of the year for me to go on my own for a whole nother year to replace my income. So then I become what I like to call laser focused on it, to where that's all I see. My eye is singular on that task.
You know what? That is so good. So here, I want to just add to that, if I might.
Please do.
Focus is not just saying yes to the thing that you're saying that you're gonna focus on, but it's also saying no to all the things that don't line up with it. Because sometimes in our busyness, in our stretch, in our doing multiple things, sometimes it doesn't give us enough margin to really be able to focus on the one thing. And you got to say no. Sometimes you just have to say no. Busyness isn't necessarily productivity. It is what we say. It's busyness. And if you really want to get to that, hey, I'm going to save enough money so that I can give a run for this new business that I want to, or leave my corporate job, you have to be single focused and say no to some stuff that, you know what, hey, I got to say no to the extra going out and doing all the extra stuff, or no to the things that just don't line up. If you have a goal that you're saying yes to, that you're going to focus on, it's also going to require you to say no to some other things.
Yeah. That's really, really good. Here's another definition that I like too.
Okay.
And it's a little more simple, but I want to read it to make sure I got it correct. And it simply is the ability to know what matters most and act on it. And so that made me think about, I remember, and we've talked about this before, but I remember probably the best sports team I was on that had the most focused on what the goal was. And the goal always in sports is to win the game. But the best team that I actually played on, to a man, and there were 11 people on offense, 11 people on defense, of course, but everybody knew what the goal was and everybody acted accordingly. So that means from the time we were in practice, we were in the film room, we were watching the plays, then we went back out to practice, and then even in the pregame warm-up, everybody focused. Then in the game, so when the game came, when it came time for us to perform and act on, what our intention was to win the game, everything seemed to slow down and was easy. It was simple, because of the focus that we had. And so we understood what mattered most. So what matters most on every given play is everybody doing their job in football. All 11 men doing their job. And when we got to that point, we were functioning on such a high level, we literally could not be stopped.
That's amazing.
And that's the kind of focus that we had. Now, the year before that and the year after that, we weren't focused. It was a lot of playing around. It was a lot of distraction. It was a lot of joking. Still very talented teams. Didn't go undefeated. Lost a couple of games both seasons because we were not focused. Because it didn't matter really to us, to me, as I think about it now. If we won, cool. If we didn't, it was still cool. We wanted to win. But that 1 year in the middle where everybody was focused and we wanted to win, and we wanted to win at a high level, it was literally, it was a night and day difference. So as I look back at it now, I can see how, like you mentioned distractions, and distractions are so subtle. Because when you're playing around in the locker room, you don't think that stuff shows up in the game, but it does. It totally does when it's time to perform.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what, you said something, or what you said made me think about discipline makes the difference. right? You said that you was on a team. Everybody was locked in on their particular positions and what their plays needed to be, what actions they needed to take during practice as well as on the field. And then when you don't do that, right? So like that, when everybody's locked in, you guys went undefeated that season. Well, then another season, following, you didn't have that same type of focus, right? The same type of discipline, the same type of, hey, what do we need to do so that we can continue to do this? When you don't have that in mind, that discipline makes the difference. And it requires it. It requires it. Like, focus is a discipline, right? Like, hey, if I am going to focus on leaving my job at the end of the year, or I'm going to focus on building this business so that it's revenue generating and it's profitable. Because if you're not profitable, you're not in business. You doing in-kind donations for people. But discipline is what makes the difference in order for you to be able to do that.
So let's unpack the discipline.
Okay.
Because we understand what focus is now. Mm-hmm. We understand what distractions are. Distractions are anything that take your attention, away from what your goal is.
Yeah.
So let's unpack discipline, because I think everybody has or may have a different definition of what discipline, looks like. Mm-hmm. Because I think when you really become disciplined, your whole your mindset and your decisions change most of all. So when I say, okay, Michelle, what's the last thing you've been disciplined about? And how did that process go? What would that look like for you? And then I'll answer it too.
All right. So discipline. I would say that it is on running our business, being able to ensure that we have a great customer experience. And so the discipline has been, okay, Michelle, you need to make sure that everything that a person experiences with you, with us, with our company, that it's a good experience. We want people to be able to go and give a 5-star Google review, right? So what's required in that is, hey, where are gaps? What is there anything missing? Is there something that we're not doing? So one of the things that recently I had to do was step up and automate all of our customer service type things, so that people get a touch point from us each week. People have an opportunity to ask questions. They know when the office hours are. They know how to, when we're going to respond, the best way for us to reach out to them, the best way for them to reach out to us. We want to make sure that we're proactive in our approach and what we give it. And so it required me, like, okay, examining what we're doing currently. How do we tighten and button it up? And then what difference does it make? Because the goal is, and what I'm focusing on is, we want everybody to have a great experience with us, and that experience is so great that they were willing to give us a 5-star review to do it. And so, there are weekends when I'm not out playing. I'm working because I'm wanting to make sure that things is right. I'm starting early, finishing late so that it gets done. And so that discipline said, it required me to, focus in on that, lock in, and make sure that it was good. So that was the last thing that I was told and needed to be disciplined about.
Yeah, I think, when I think of discipline, you have multiple members in your family who were in the military, as did I. Mm-hmm. A lot of my friends went to the military after high school. And, when you talk to somebody who was in the military, like, everything is buttoned up. You were in the military. Mm-hmm. Y'all had a set time for everything. You had to get up, you had to run, you had to be here, you had to report, you had to check in. There was no deviation. Right. It's the thing that pops into my mind about discipline. It's doing the same things over and over, repeatedly, to get to an expected result. So I'll just use myself. Mm-hmm. So at a certain point in time, I was 370 pounds. I let myself get to 370 pounds. It was nobody's fault. It wasn't because, you were cooking all of these fantastic
It
meals,
wasn't? Are you
and I
sure?
lost my discipline and was eating like a hog. It wasn't because of that. It was simply because I wasn't working out. I was eating more and not doing anything to get rid of those calories. And not only was I eating more, I was eating the wrong things. You know, I remember days I would go buy a whole pack of brownies. I would go get a quart of chocolate milk, and I would go to Russell Stover's and buy a whole big brick of fudge, and I would sit there and eat it all. Totally not the discipline that I grew up with. You know, so let's fast forward to now. So now I changed my focus to being healthy. So if you're going to be healthy, then the discipline of being healthy is, okay, I got to eat a certain way. I can't have this and I can't have that for a prolonged period of time. Can you treat yourself? Yes, but you're not treating yourself 3, 4, 5 times a week. You're treating yourself maybe only three times a month. You know, discipline says not only do I have to change my diet and stick with it, now I have to start exercising and sticking with it. You know, I got to make different choices, you know, now. And I can't do it for 1 week on and 1 week off. I got to do it every day. So I got to work out 5 times a week now. You know, I have to eat fish, chicken, and turkey, and I have to eat vegetables. And vegetables are probably 50 to 75% of what I eat now. And I have to do it every day. You know, and that's the discipline. That's the me sticking it out over time, doing the same things. And then as a byproduct of the discipline, it's not really ever about losing weight if it's about healthy. So when I took my recent blood panel, you know, all of my LDL, my good fat, my bad fat, it's all down. My good fat is up. My blood pressure now is stable, you know, and I have to buy new clothes. Yeah. So my goal wasn't actually just to lose weight. My goal was to be healthy. But to be healthy, discipline says I have to eat right, I have to exercise, and I have to do it every single day. And then every once in a while, I can treat myself, you know, as a reward for me. Now, some people, they have a different opinion about it. They don't ever treat themselves. I'm a treat yourself person every now and then, you know, but then I'm right back on it.
Yeah.
Like this morning.
I love that. I love that because, and what has happened is discipline is making your decisions, right? The discipline says, hey, if I want to be healthy, if I want to move my business forward, if I want to do something different, then it's going to require me to make some different decisions. And when you make those different decisions, the end result, the byproduct, as you said, is, hey, you know what? I've lost some weight. I feel better. I have more energy. Listen, I can go inside a TJ Maxx and buy some pants right off the rack, you know, because you're not necessarily in a big and tall where, you know, and if that particular store doesn't have it, then it's, you know, it's deuces. But, you know, but the discipline has enabled you, one, you make different decisions, but then because of those different decisions that you're making, it actually creates new opportunities for you, new energy for you, new flow for you. And that's what happens. Like, those are the things, like, I get energized by that because if I'm willing to, I remember Dave Ramsey. Remember we did Financial Peace years ago. And when you think about your money, if you're willing to live like no one else now, you're going to really be able to live like no one else later. You know, health and wealth go together, you know, so being healthy is essential if you really want to be wealthy. Because there's a lot of people that have lots of money, but they don't have their health. They sick. You know, they can't move. They're not able to do the things that they want to. I remember working with Sister Connie, and she was an amazing, you know, woman of God. And Sister Connie was the manager, the office manager at the church. And, but she was dealing with COPD. She was having some, you know, health things. And I remember her saying to me, cause she would come into the, you know, come from the parking lot and need to sit down in the chair. Maybe she walked, you know, 12 feet. and she needed to sit there, catch her breath before she then went into her office. And it was because she, had challenges. And I remember her saying to me, her and her husband, they had done well. She worked for neurosurgeons, most of her career, and what she said was, you know what, Michelle, we've got the money to do anything. They're millionaires. We have the money to do anything that we want to do, but our bodies won't allow us to. And so discipline now, making those decisions now, you'll be able to live like no one else doing that. And then later, you'll really be able to do something. You'll really be able to live like you want to. So it's worth it. I guess that's my whole thing. I just want to say it's worth it.
No, you're right. You're right. It is worth it. Especially, when you're talking about, I know, as we get older, your priorities, they begin to change and shift, and so now when I talk to our son, some of our conversation is, you're at the age now where you can do certain things, and I started kind of conditioning him when he was in high school. When you start getting older, you want to function like this. You want to live like this. You don't want to let yourself really get out of shape and all of those other things. And I'm not all harping on the health issue and stuff like this, because everybody has to make a determination for themselves, on how they want their future to look, in regard to their health. But I do understand, that it does take, laser focus, a lot of focus, and the distractions, they come often, and the ability to handle distractions, I think, is a dividing line, between, really fulfilling your God-given assignment, that he gave you, or, you just kind of just moving along, not that you're doing anything bad, but you never get to the point where you reach the fulfillment that God had for you, or that he had planned for you. I'm reminded of the scripture, and I think it's in Philippians that says, he that has begun a good work in you will perform it into the day of Jesus Christ. And we look at that picture, and a lot of times I think the way we understand it is, well, God's going to do all the work, and that's not that, it's not true. We have a very big part to play in what I think we were talking last night. And I remember thinking, I was like, I said, I've heard people pray a lot of time, God, please open the door. God, please open the door, and all of these things. And I'm like, well, God may open the door, but you got to get up and start walking towards it. If you stay in the chair, you'll never get to the door, and I think that's what distractions keep us, whatever it is. I know when during football season, when I'm locked in, you can't get me out from in front of that TV during football season. But what God told me, I remember I heard it in my spirit. I remember one Sunday I came home and he said, don't watch any games today. So I was like, I think that day we went to 7:45 service that day, so I'm thinking this is 9:30, we back home. The game started at 1. So from 1 o'clock to 10 o'clock, it's game's on. And I'm in front of the TV for all of it. He said, don't watch it. And my response was, what am I going to do? How am I going to fill this 9 hours of time, when I'm normally watching these football games? And he was like, go in there and work on, what you said you wanted.
Create it.
So that was a distraction for me. And I believe he was testing me to see if I would just be obedient and just do it just this one Sunday. And so now I'm geared to do some different things now to refocus and readjust, because we do have goals that we want to accomplish and things we want to get to. But I think it's important, for people to understand, especially if you're younger, get to the point where you're laser focused earlier, where you understand where you're keeping the main thing. Like I said, if your goal is to, whatever it is, if it's a relationship, give it the attention that it deserves, give it the focus that it deserves. If it's with your children, if it's on your job, whatever it is, make sure you're making the main thing the main thing, because the first does determine the rest.
No, man, Brian, you said a lot there. And you're so right, because you know what, we really do have to, I would say predetermine what it is that you're going to focus on, right? Like just make that decision first. Like, what is it that I do need to focus on? And let what you're focusing on be the purpose of your life, right? Like I'm going to focus on getting what it is God has for me. So, for some people, that's going to be, go to the Lord first. Like, find out. If you're living in a state where you feel like, hey, I don't 100% feel like I know what my purpose is. Seek the Lord so that he can share with you, and then start doing things towards it. I wrote a book. Gosh, it's been some years ago now, but the book was called Giving Your Intentions Some Attention. Those things that you intend to do, that you want to accomplish, a lot of times God has dropped it in your heart and in your spirit. You're probably already acting on it. You just haven't really focused in on it long enough to really say, you know what, this is what the purpose of my life is, and this is what I should be doing, and just really kind of spending some time in that on that path. And so predetermine first, what is the purpose of my life? And my focus is going to be 100% towards that. It'll make a difference.
I'm so glad you mentioned that book, as we begin to wrap up, because this is how you've been married a long time. I was thinking about the book she wrote, Giving Your Intention Some Attention, this morning. And I'm like, after being married to be 27 years this year, you do bring it up. And I wanted to say, because I wanted to touch on that book, because you were at a certain place when you began to write that book. And I wanted you just to talk about that, because I know we got to run, but just a little bit about what that book is, because I think that is something I think people need to get and check out.
Yeah. You know what? I was just at a place where I was listening for, actually, it's just what I just said. I was in a place where I was like, God, what is it that you have me to do? What is my purpose? Right? And part of it has always been, if you ever see me in church or at work or with anything, I'm taking notes. I'm always taking notes. And one of the things that the Lord has spoken to me was in writing, like communicating. And sometimes I might be a better communicator with a pen than I may be standing in front of an audience. But it was really, he was speaking to me, and he was saying, you know what, Michelle, all the things that I have placed in your heart, write it down. And those things that you have written down, then take the next step, take it where it needs to go. But you've got to give some attention to it if you don't. And so that was really the push to write the book. But it was also the message in the book is, whatever it is that God has given to you, it is being intent on giving it the attention that it deserves. Because so many opportunities go by us, we miss them. They may come back around again, but you're not guaranteed that they will. But if he's giving you something, give attention to it. And chances are it's going to lead you in the way that he has purposed for you to go.
Good. Tell them where they can get the book, though, real quick.
Oh, you know what? You can go online and grab the book at, you can get it on Amazon, wherever you like to purchase, or you can go to michellegines.online. I will actually share, the link is going to be in the description. How about we do that? We'll make it easy for you to grab it. But the point is, it is that focus, like if you can lock in to what it is, say no to the things that will keep you from it, make a decision to be disciplined, and then let the discipline drive your decisions. And you will be able to change the trajectory of your own life just by making some simple choices to do something different. You'll see it.
To figure out what matters most.
Yeah.
And act on it. Just as simple as that.
I love it. Well, you know what, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button. Share some comments with us. We'd love to hear from you. And with that, I'm going to kick it back over to Brian to close us out.
As always, some people are meant to create small business. Some people are meant to create a large business. and some people are meant to create empires. Which one are you?